average height, I'm average IQ, I'm averaging about everything you can imagine, right? But what I'm not averaging is my standards anymore. What if the standard wasn't that you just kept the promises you made to yourself? But what if the standard was a little higher? And that standard of your life is, I keep the promises I make to myself and one more.
Most people don't know where their time goes, don't know how to manage their time, and then they get to the end of their life and they don't know where their time went. How do you consider time, process time, and educate people about time?
We are still managing and measuring time the same way we did 300 years ago. A day is still 24 hours. Who the hell came up with this crap? I get 21 days a week now. I get 3 days in the day. I get 21 days a week. You get 7. Stack that up over a month. Who's going to win? Stack it up over 6 months. Who's going to win? Stack it up over 6 years. And I've had thousands more days than you. I'm going to crush you. I believe you were born to do something great with your life. And I think maybe you've forgotten. And I'm here to remind you today that you were born to do something great with your life. And greatness doesn't mean you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars, although it can. Greatness means this, that you have a vision and imagination and a dream for your life, and your life ends up replicating it. Do you know what I would give for one more round of golf with my dad? Do you know what I would give for one more talk with my dad? If you're listening to this right now, what if I told you only get one more conversation with your children? How much more precious does that one more become? What if I told you you only get one more dance with your sweetie pie, with your sweetheart? What if I told you this was the last podcast or your last meeting? What if you started to treat things in your life like you only have one more of them? And all of a sudden, your whole universe will change.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is...
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Ed Mylett, the American entrepreneur, business coach, author, and motivational speaker. You have achieved incredible success in your life, having started out in the financial services industry before moving into real estate, technology, health, and nutrition. You've been named in the Forbes top 50 wealthiest under 50 and have a dedicated audience of over 3 million followers across social media. You are also the host of the #1 business podcast, The Ed Mylett Show, where you've interviewed thought leaders and peak performers from David Goggins to Joe Dispenza to Tony Robbins and Jay Shetty. You are the best-selling author of Max Out Your Life, and your latest book, The Power of One More, showcases the strategies that will help readers achieve levels of success that they never thought possible by helping remove the mental roadblocks that have stopped them from realizing their dreams. Ed, brother, welcome back to London Real.
Brian, it's so good to be with you. And I was just telling you before we started how much you're inspiring me. You're one of the very few people that I watch really closely on social media. And so I'm really honored to do this with you again.
Ed, I very much appreciate it. You reached out a few weeks back and I just thought, man, there's another chance for us to connect. I felt like that first time we had you on the show, it felt like we reconnected. I don't know, like we shared some type of energy or the way we look at life or going through struggles and adding value. So it always feels like I'm having a convo with an old friend. Does that sound strange?
Brian, not strange at all. Well, the day we had that conversation, I walked out, I was at my desert house. I walked out, my son was in the living room. I said, I just had an interview with a dude I've been watching for years. I feel like I've known him for years. And my son said, that's not possible. I said, yeah, it's probably not possible, but it feels like it. So that's bizarre that you just said that, because it was exactly what I said to my son 2 minutes after we finished.
It's like the world is full of energy. Sometimes it's trying to give you information. Sometimes guys like us, who in the past maybe were focused on, process and results and stuff, I didn't always acknowledge some of that information. But now, as I get older and wiser, I'm starting to think, you know what? This is the world telling me something. It's saying, do more with these people, share more of this energy, And so, yeah, I'm now going with it more at this age.
It's true, brother. I feel it too. It's funny. It was with you and I, the surprising part was because it wasn't in person. So normally when I feel something, the sense that strong, I usually am in the presence of somebody, but I felt it with you and I, even through this forum right here. And one thing about energy, you're always making people feel something. And so the more intentional you become to some extent about what you are making people, just be aware you're making people feel something, the more you're going to have a better ability to connect with people just in general. And it's amazing to me how many people are oblivious to the fact that at any given moment, you're always making people feel something.
It's so true. It's something I used to tell to a lot of the young men and women here when they were coming in. I said, you say you're a leader, and they'd say, well, I'm not the head of the department. And I said, but every day someone's watching you and they're getting inspiration from you or not. It could be your family, your friends, colleagues. And so everyone's always vibing off of you. And if you can come in and have that focus, that plan, that good energy, that positivity, that one more attitude, then you'll be amazed where it takes you. And it was always interesting the way they looked at me, because some of them started to understand, but like you said, I don't know if everybody's aware of that, but it's something maybe everyone should think about now, is that you're, like you said, people are always getting some energy from you, right?
Yeah, they are. I bet more people get it from you than you think, brother, because your example's so good. We were talking about our daughters before we started. And, you know, one thing in parenting I've realized, and in leadership in general, so parenting is the ultimate leadership position, right? But like most things in life, most lessons, at least for me, have been caught, not taught. People catch it. They catch it when they're around you. We're always trying as leaders, teach a lesson, you know, teach our children things. That works a little bit, but they catch things every single day, even when we're not looking. And so if you don't think you're in a leadership position, you're teaching people things all the time about who you are, what you stand for, what kind of an influence you can have, the impacts you make, because it's caught, not taught in every environment. You don't need a title or a tag or a position in order to do that.
I love that, caught, not taught. Let's talk about parenting really quick, because you just made me remember something, Ed, from our last conversation, is that I know that you're so proud of your children and that you're always giving them all this positive feedback. And I don't know if we had this conversation on camera last time or off, but what I do is to my sons now every night after I read them a story before we go to bed is I tell them how much I love them and how proud I am of them. And I think I asked you this last time and you said, yep, Brian, I do that every single day. I'm constantly telling my daughter I'm proud of her, constantly telling my son. And tell me about that parenting and that leadership role and maybe what your view is on it.
Yeah, and by the way, and I won't keep going to my book because I think that's cheesy when people do it. But when I wrote the book, I'm like, I don't want to just write this for entrepreneurs, but I did, or athletes, but I did, or leaders in business. But I also want to write it for parents. So it's a very diverse book. Like the lessons in the book transcend these things. But I just really believe that when we're young, you know, we end up building these belief systems when we're really young, when we're defenseless, that our parents install in us. They're limiting beliefs or they're expansive beliefs. And it's people that love us, but oftentimes they kind of inject their software, their way of thinking inside of us. Because I believe that to be true, because I learned some stuff from my dad and mom that was good, and I learned some stuff that didn't serve me. And so I was constantly feeding them to the point where they'd roll their eyes. Bella Boo, you're a superstar. You're the greatest of all time. You're going to do something. She left for school this morning. She's a senior in high school. I'm like, Bella, do something great. Be a leader. Let's do it. You're awesome. Let's make something great happen. Max out. I yelled it to her. I didn't even make eye contact. He's like, okay, Dad. But she's catching it. It's not all taught, it's caught. And I tell Max, he goes to bed at night. He's back from college right now. He's 6'3", man. Like he's a much bigger dude than me now. I'm like, hey man, you're a leader. You're a gladiator. You're the greatest of all time, brother. He's like, I know, Dad. But now that they get a little bit older and I watch them in the world, I think they do know.
Yeah.
I think they do feel differently about themselves. I was careful not to install limiting beliefs in them. And even though maybe it got repetitive, that's the one thing that parents get sick of doing, or even leaders in business, repetition. They think, well, I always got to say I got to always say new things to these old people. No, leadership is saying old things to new people, or old things to the people that have been around you for a long time. So I've repeated that stuff. My son has heard, you're a leader, a gladiator, and the greatest of all time, probably 17,000 times at least in his life. And there's got to be a moment when he's under pressure and he's got to hit a golf shot. He's in college. He's a golfer. There's got to be a moment, at least once in a while, where he feels that. And the absence of it would cause him to make an error or a mistake or a misjudgment, or maybe he'd do a drug that he shouldn't do or a decision he shouldn't make. If it alters one decision in his life, it was worth saying 17,000 times, because the premise of my book and my life is that even in your dreams, you're way closer to the life you think you want than you think you are. Most people, the Bible goes, there's no vision, the people will perish. People have really misconstrued that, I think. We have vision. I mean, if I said you want to be happy or sad, you say happy. Rich or poor, probably rich. Make a difference or make no difference in your life. Have beautiful memories or not so great memories. We know the answer. So we have vision. Our problem is depth perception. We think it's so far away. So because we think it's so far away, we act in accordance with that belief system and we perpetually keep it there and we never get there. But what if the truth is, it isn't that far away? And the whole time there's been this veil, this very thin veil between what you want and having it or not. And that can be as small as one decision, one relationship, one meeting, one interview, one book, one thought, one new emotion can completely change your life. You've had those moments in your life. I've had them, and they brought that stuff much closer to us. So that's why it's worth doing that as a parent at a minimum.
And I love this concept of one more. And like you said, we have been kind of told this thing that everything is way out in the future, and most of us are very hard term on ourselves in the short term, and we don't see what we can accomplish in the long term. And so a lot of people stop from doing that. And so I want to get into this one more concept with you, because what you just said is like kind of blowing my mind and empowering me to like even think bigger as well. And I just want to finish with the parenting thing. Like because of you, I kind of grab my kids and I'm always whispering in their ears, like, I'm so proud of you. And I compliment them in front of their mom. Like, did you see how good Caden is at drawing? Did you see the push-ups that Damon did today? And I'm always like repeating. And like you said, that's what leadership is. It's just continuing to repeat those lessons, because you have to ingrain it in everyone around you, because that's going to help them make that one more time decision in the future.
Can I tell you one thing on that?
Yeah.
That you just did really brilliantly well. I've actually orchestrated it with my wife, but I did it with my dad before he passed away, and my mom as well. The greatest compliments I ever got as a child that I still remember would be my grandfather. He'd come to my Little League games. He was probably making this up, by the way, but he would come to all my baseball games. And after the game, he's a very quiet man, and he would go, I wish you could. I go 0 for 4, right? 2 ground outs. He'd go, I wish you could have heard the other parents talking about you. How fast you got down the line on first base on that ground out. They've never seen a kid run that hard. That catch you made in center field, after you made that catch, I wish you could have heard what the other parents were saying about you. Those are the things I remember. It's like the third party compliment, because you're like, wow. So I've told my wife, when I'm not around, you tell them, do you know how proud your father is of you? Do you know how proud daddy is? Do you ever hear how daddy talks about you to other people? I would tell my mom, hey, when Max comes over for lunch, will you just do me a favor for a second? At some point, just say, I don't know if you know how proud your dad is of you. So I wanted them to hear it, not just from me directly, but like the third party part of it. And in business, this matters too, where you create a culture, people go, hey man, I was just in there with the boss, with the big guy. Well, he's raving. He appreciates you. He's raving about you. Those mean even more than a direct compliment. It's getting to hear the indirect one.
Right. All right. So empower that. I know I remember having a few baseball games like that as well, where I went 0 for 4 in T-ball as well. So we won't get started about that. Let's talk about the book, because the whole premise is this one more. I do want to get at some point into where that came from and the story of your father as well, because I want to get into that because I think it's important. But talk to me about the book and the perspectives that you're trying to give people. You already laid some of it out here as well, as in sometimes we just need to remember that it's that one more, and that we're closer than we think to realizing our dreams. And that's why we have to take that one more shot. Is that the premise of this book?
There is. That's one. There's a little layers to it. The other one is it's a standard. So in your life, you don't always get your goals. In fact, statistically, I have a whole chapter on how to set goals in the book. But even if you did what I teach you in the book, you're going to get 24, 25% of them at best, if they're real goals. But you will always get your standards. Ultimately, in life, we get our standards. And so there's all this, I don't know if I was the first person to say it, I think I am, but people have repeated it now for 10 years in personal development, self-confidence. And they say the way you get self-confidence is you keep the promises you make to yourself. If you don't have self-confidence, you've built a relationship or reputation with yourself where you don't keep the promises. So one way to build baseline confidence is, hey, make your bed in the morning. If you're going to make 10 contacts a day, make it. You're going to drink a gallon of water, drink the gallon of water. Do what you say you're going to do, even if it's small things, and you change the relationship and reputation you have with yourself. And that'll get you to be a confident person. But I don't want to just be a confident person. I want to be able to perform in my life as an average man, which is what I am. I'm average height, I'm average IQ, I'm average in about everything you can imagine, right? But what I'm not average in is my standards anymore. And so what if the standard wasn't that you just kept the promises you made to yourself, but what if the standard was a little higher? And that standard of your life is, I keep the promises I make to myself and one more. And so I'm not just going to make 10 contacts a day. I'm going to make the 10 contacts, keep that promise I made to myself, plus one more. I'm not going to do 10 reps in the bench. I'm going to do 10 plus one more. I'm not doing 30 minutes on the treadmill. I'm doing 30 minutes plus one more. I'm not telling Bella I love her every day. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it one more time every day. And now when you've raised that standard, a couple things happen. Mathematically, you've increased your odds of winning because you've done more, right? You've spread out the chances of winning and put it in your favor. But two, you've now set a standard that almost no human being on earth will do consistently. And if you do it, you begin to believe you deserve things most human beings don't deserve in their life. And I transformed myself from a dude who had no confidence. Then I started keeping those promises. I'm like, okay, what's next? I got to do one more. And then the layer behind that is you are truly one of these away from changing your life. Quick story. Just played golf with a dude 3 weeks ago. Bananas story. And this guy wanted to meet me. Guy says, hey, you guys got similar net worths. The guy wants to meet. I get to the first tee, Brian, and he goes, hey, I'm a big fan. Next 5 hours, I'm learning everything about Ed Mylett. I go, no, you're not. That's not how this works, bro. I already know about me. I want to know about you. And he goes, well, mine's quick. I can tell you on the first tee. I said, give it to me. He says, 1986, I loaned $50,000 to a guy. My best friend loaned the same guy 50 grand. A week later, my best friend got cold feet, got his money back. I continued on with the loan. I said, awesome. He said, it turned into $750 million. I said, say that again. You loaned a dude 50 G's. It turned into $750 million 20 years later. Yeah. I said, who the hell did you loan this money to? Jeff Bezos. I said, get out of town. I said, you were really one relationship, one decision, one loan away, totally changed your life. He goes, amen. Now, that's the most extreme example I've ever heard in my life. I don't have any of those, but I have a series of them in my life that stack up about equivalent to his because I believed in this premise.
Now, let me ask one thing about one more. What if you get to a point where you have no more mental bandwidth with one more? Is that a possibility, or is that just something that people fear, that I run out of time in my day to do all of these kinds of things, and then I kind of get to a mental frying point where then I do 0 more and then 1 less and then 5 less?
Yep.
How do you at least talk about that so the brain doesn't defeat the process?
Okay, maybe in a minute after this, we'll talk about time, because I have a whole chapter on how to bend and manipulate time.
I know you do. I want to get
there
that
next.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, I have a chapter in the book where I talk about one more inconvenience, which is learning to do the inconvenient and difficult thing. But the underlying factor in that, to answer this part of the question, is this. I have a quote in there where I say, extremity expands capacity. So when you do something to the extreme, not only are you doing more, you're expanding your capacity to do more in the future. Extremity expands capacity. I had John Maxwell on my show. He's been on a few times. And everybody probably knows who John is, but he's a prolific leadership author, one of the best authors of all time, but really been a good friend and mentor to me. And he said, Ed, I'm growing more in my 70s than I've ever grown in my life. And that's something guys of that age say all the time, right? You're like, yeah, you got it. 70's the new 50, right? And he goes, no, I really am. And he said, I've pushed myself to grow so much in the last 50 years of my life that my capacity to grow is expansive because of it. And in that minute, I went, extremity expands capacity. I have a really bad right shoulder. The reason I do is my shoulders used to be much bigger. I expanded the capacity of my shoulder socket so that a big old shoulder could fit in there. Now that I've trimmed and leaned down and I'm not lifting quite as heavy, this shoulder kind of floats around in there because my capacity for that space is expanded by the extreme things I did to expand it. So it's a fallacy. That will not happen to you. As you expand your work ethic, as you expand the one mores, your capacity to do one mores expands in a very congruent way.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I want to get into the time management because you got a whole chapter to it, and you got 5 principles of time management, which is really important. You're talking a little bit about identity, which again, you dedicate chapter in the book to, Ed. And again, you're already starting to put little bits of it in here as far as telling yourself, showing yourself you can do it. Can you talk about that change in identity? And it must be the biggest thing you see when you meet with people that are struggling with success, is that they don't believe they're that person, or they don't see themselves as that person. So
they don't. And I love Think and Grow Rich. I love it. It's right here. I mean, it's one of my favorite books of all time. I have my Bible and Think and Grow Rich. But here's the deal, man. And I love the book. It's awesome. It's my favorite book.
Right.
But you don't just think and get rich.
I know.
You got to do stuff. And so, I wrote the book on how do you think and what do you do simultaneously. Identity requires both. And so identity, we talked about this last time, but identity in your life governs everything. It's an invisible force. So actually in this room I'm in, there's a thermostat right there. It is set at 71 degrees right now. It's hotter than that outside. The external conditions don't dictate this internal room here. And so what happens is when it's hot outside, the thermostat kicks on and cools room and regulates it to its identity setting of 71 degrees. That's exactly what your identity does in your life. So you have many identities. You have a faith, a fitness, a happiness, a financial. Let's just take business or financial. If you're a 71 degreer, you've already done this in your life. You're all going to go, oh my God, you're 71 degreer. And you start getting 80, 90, 100 degrees worth of external results. You've learned new skills. Your business is taken off. You will find a way over a window of time to turn that freaking air conditioner on of your life and cool it back down to what you believe you're worth at your thermostat setting, don't you? And it's going to seem coincidental. No, man. Stock market dropped, crypto tanked, my car broke down, supply chain, BS. Not true. Other people had those same things happen. They stay up there. You cooled it back down to what you believe you're worth. So the key thing in our lives is not just to acquire these skills. It's altering that thermostat setting to 80, 90, 100, because you will always get what you believe you're worth. And this is true in business and in life. Happiness. You have a fitness one. You have a 70-degree thermostat setting. You got to lose 20 pounds. You lose it. You're at 90 now. A year and a half later, you see that person, they put the 20 pounds back on. They turn the air conditioner on of their life. Relationships, same thing. Man, I found the love of my life, but you're a 70-degree, what you believe you're worth in a relationship. Year later, you see what happened. We grew apart. Wasn't what I thought it was. Cool it right back down to being alone. How do you change it? 3 quick things to say it fast. I won't detail them. I have a trilogy of changing your identity. 1, faith. If you have faith, you should connect it. If you have it, whatever it is, you should be connecting it to your identity. If you're really the child of a loving God, or you believe the universe vibrates at a frequency in the quantum field that you could tap into at any time you want. It's interesting to me, people of faith, man, if you're a Christian, I love Jesus on Sundays, love him in my Bible study, but when I walk into that business meeting, I'm solo. Why? That's interesting. God's either always with you or he's not. Oh, it made you do something great or he's not. Start to attach your faith, because you know your faith, to your identity. 2, your intentions. I'm running on a beach one time, Hawaii, guys running towards me, middle of the morning, sun's not up. It's Wayne Dyer. If everyone doesn't know who Wayne Dyer is, and O'Brien does, look him up. He became a mentor of mine. We watched the sun come up together. He says to me, Ed, you're going to change the world. You've got this amazing voice. Your mind's incredible. I was like 28 years old. I'm sure he said this to lots of people. And he goes, and that's not why. Would you please do me a favor and never attach your worth to your skills or achievements, because you'll chase them forever. I said, sure, Wayne, what do I attach it to? He said, your intentions. You've got a beautiful heart. You want to serve. You want to make a difference. Attach it to your intentions, Ed, and you'll never be alone. And I went, you know what? I don't always believe in my abilities. I always believe in my intent. So even before we started today, bro, I said a quick prayer connected with my faith. I reminded myself, I don't have every answer, but man, would I love to help some people today. My intention is to serve you and these folks. So that's 2. And then 3rd is association. If I'm a 70 degreer, I hang around 100 degreer, they heat me up by proximity. 1 is not enough. You have to attach your faith or belief systems, your intentions, and your associations. You alter the thermostat setting.
Wow. Okay, I got a lot to think about now for the next couple of days on that. Wow, so many powerful things. And yeah, we all know Wayne here, and it's amazing you had some contact with him back in the day.
A lot.
A lot. Yeah, it shows. Yeah. It shows now a bit. Yeah. And so it's your intentions you connect with, and that way you don't get caught on your short-term gains or your short-term losses or whatever. You connect with those intentions. You know those are pure. Connect with the faith, and then you surround yourself with people that keep you on that track and raise that temperature. And that's something anybody now can think about and say, okay, which one of those things am I not doing well, if maybe all 3, and how can I start to take the action steps even today to start changing one of those in an intentional way?
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, the reason I list those 3 is at one point I lacked all 3. At one point I had a very low identity. At one point I had no self-confidence. Hopefully, people are inspired by the fact that I'm a really average dude. And I don't say that to be self-deprecating. I really am.
Yeah, because that's hard for us to believe, Ed. I mean, that's hard for us to believe. I got to take a time out, and I want to get back to some of these points. But Ed, it's hard to believe you were ever average. So can you explain this to and make us believe it? Because you seem like a high performance person in all aspects of your life. And it seems like you always have been somehow. Yes. So tell us how that's not true.
I'm not going to be dishonest and say that I'm not now. I am. I mean, I have bad days and I'm sad and frustrated and all that stuff, but I wasn't. We'll get into it in a minute, but I'm this child of an alcoholic. I'm the oldest son, the oldest child of an alcoholic and a drug addict. When you grow up in that kind of chaos and anxiety, you're ashamed. You think you're nothing. I would leave my house most days, man, and go, why can't I have a good family? You know, and you attach your identity to how screwed up your family is. My friends wouldn't even come over my house as a kid. Like, your dad yells too much, man. Our neighbors could hear it. When I'd walk outside, I was ashamed because they could hear it. And then I'd go to school. I got beat up and bullied. I was really little. I was so thin. I was Eddie Spaghetti. Your meatballs are ready. I got teased every day. And there were even points in my life as a child that I've reflected as I've gotten older where I wasn't even sure I wanted to live. I never was suicidal, but I always wondered, what's the point, right? So I had none of that. And even as an adult, I carried a lot of that with me. Just all the limiting beliefs and the things I had to go through as a kid. And the good news, we'll talk in a minute, my dad got sober, but so I come from stuff that's just like didn't give me any self-esteem at all. So I had to learn all of these tools that I have in the book, brother, to become a baseline functioning person. But then when it started to work, I went, wait a minute. And I had great money. I had Robbins was young. I had Wayne Dyer when I was young. I mean, friends. And then I had this team psychologist when I played baseball that was actually killed that taught me all the stuff about neuroplasticity way before it was cool and your reticular activating system in your brain. And I learned all this cutting edge stuff. He would have been famous had he not died. I took it and made it mine. So I absolutely come from nothing like that. And I've worked really hard on becoming someone who's self-confident and makes a difference in the world through this stuff.
It's so impressive to hear that progress. And one of the things you talk about is that your dad ended up becoming sober at one point. I think he told you in the car, he said, one more time, give me one more time. And it was probably asking a faith from you that probably seemed impossible, but maybe it showed you that one more time could even exist, even for someone like your dad.
Yeah, one more try.
One more try.
But we're driving, we're going to a baseball game. Never seen my dad cry before. After my dad was a dude, man, like a man. I see my dad in more than 40 physical fights. I'm not exaggerating. Side of the freeway, baseball game, Angel game, church one Sunday in the donut line. Like, I've seen my old man scrap. My dad was a dude. And my dad didn't live well the first 15 years of my life. And then he lived magnificently the last 35, the best I've ever seen. My belief that humans can change stems from I watched my hero do it. But he's crying in the car that day. He goes, hey, look, I'm going to go away. I'm going to try to quit drinking one more time. I said, Daddy, what would be any different this time? He had tried to quit a bunch of times. He goes, I'm losing you and my family. Your mom's taking you guys from me. And the truth is, you deserve a dad you can be proud of. And your mom deserves a husband she can respect. So I'm going to give it one more try. The first one more I'd ever heard in my life was that one. And then when he got sober, and I know you relate to this, when he got sober, I said, Dad, are you never going to drink or use drugs again? And he goes, I can't promise you that, but I know this, I'm not going to for one more day at a time. And my dad stacked up 35 years of those one more days into sobriety till the day he passed away. And for me, that lessons, I've used it a lot, Brian. Like a lot of businesses I've had, my back was up against the wall. What we say, never quit. You start trying to make these lifetime decisions under pressure. You're like, screw it. I didn't do that. I just went, I'm not going to quit for one more day. Just one more day, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to stick around one more day, see how I feel tomorrow. And some of those days I felt different. I stacked up those one mores into now a 35-year business career. One funny thing I realized recently, I'd just tell you this, you get a kick out of this. My dad got sober on 4/20. That day he was crying was 4/20. Only my old man would get sober on the date of 4/20 in our life. And my dad never again celebrated his actual birthday. He celebrated his sobriety birthday the rest of his life.
That is incredible. And I know you got very close to him over the years, but it must have been amazing to just watch that transformation and see someone pull that off, because it works in theory, but it's so hard to do in practice. And I've been very public about my struggles with sobriety and with drugs and addiction, but But then it finally did click, and I found a way to do it. It's one of the most proudest things I've ever done in my life. But for you to witness someone do it must have been inspiring. It must have changed who you were as a person too.
Brother, I rely on it all to this day. I had a breakthrough about 3 weeks ago. I got to share with you, brother, just for me and you, but everyone can listen.
Tell me.
We discount ourselves in our lives. This is what human beings do. All this sounds good, Ed. Sounds good, Brian, but you don't know me. You don't know my divorce. You don't know my financial failures. You don't know these things I'm super ashamed of and embarrassed by. You don't know that I've never been successful in anything. I'm totally average. This stuff, I would love to believe this applies to me, but I'm disqualified. This is what most people think. And I want to say something to you. It's your humanity, your life experience, combined with your intentions and your gifts that will be actually what causes you to change your life and other people's lives. The very things you think disqualify you are what qualify you. I'm telling you. 3 weeks ago, bro, I wake up 3:15 in the morning. Number one decision that's altered my life is my dad got sober. You and I probably aren't talking if he didn't. My kids are grateful for it, and they didn't even know him. My grandkids will thank him for it. Yeah. I've reached millions of people because my dad made that decision. 3:15, I wake up. Babe, wake up. I wake up my wife. She goes, yeah, I go. I just realized something. Someone helped daddy. She went, I'm 51, bro. My dad's passed. I already wrote the book. She goes, what? I said, someone helped my dad. I never thought about it before. Someone helped my dad in the darkest, most shameful, horrible moment of his life. Some precious soul, precious human being, altered the direction of our children's lives who weren't even born. They saved my dad's life. In some bar somewhere or coffee shop or dark room, some human being stepped forward and said, I'll help you. She goes, oh my God. And I said, I had no idea who they are. And I said, that's not the craziest part. The craziest part is what qualified that person to help them? Their mess. The fact that they were also an alcoholic and a drug addict at one time. The things that person was most ashamed of in their life, most embarrassed by, the thing they think disqualifies them the most from happiness or success or making a difference is the very thing that qualified them to help daddy. That when they were driving drunk and lying to their family and doing horrible things, they were preparing for this moment to meet my dad. When they were doing drugs and stealing from their family or lying to people or doing stuff they're embarrassed by, the things they think disqualified them from being happy and successful is actually the only thing that qualified them to help my dad. And this is the beauty of how the universe works, how God works, that our experiences, the things we think that disqualify us are the very things that prepare us if we'll embrace them, if we'll be vulnerable, if we'll overcome them to teach someone else how to do better in their life. And I think it's one of the most profound lessons I've ever learned, bro. And it was 3 weeks ago after the book was written.
And you just thought there was one person that made him flip out there, and that person wasn't perfect, didn't have whatever experiences, and it was that one person that then magnified and changed everyone else's life.
My gosh, brother, like all of his grandchildren, someone listening to me and you right now is because this person went, I'll help you.
Right.
And I don't feel qualified to help you. I don't feel prepared to help you. I'm pretty screwed up myself, but here we go.
Yeah.
That happened.
And
this is the lesson of life for everybody.
It's such a big lesson. I mean, talking real, I mean, Ed, in 2018, I went to run an Ironman race. One of my guests in the studio, John Joseph, former Cro-Mags, punk rock singer, challenged me to do it and said, hey, Brian, you're going to do this 90 days on a vegan diet. I said, what are you talking about? I'm busy. I got 2 kids, la, la. He said, come to New York City. Let's do it. I started training in New York. I got all these flashbacks to my dark memories and my problems in 2001 when I lost my girlfriend, lost my job, had an overdose. And it all came out, and we were filming a documentary, and I just talked about it with John because John had some history of sexual abuse, and we just both had a real guys chat on a sofa in the East Village. And I'm telling you, we came back to London, and my guys are like, what are we going to do with this footage? And I'm like, man, we talk about being vulnerable in my academy. We talk about being vulnerable on the show. We got to roll it. And it was the scariest thing I ever did in my life to tell people about the major failure. Ed, I thought it was such a darkness in my life, it would never have any positive value, which is why I didn't tell anybody about it. Hadn't told my wife about it, told my kids about it, because I just thought this darkness will sit there forever and always be darkness. When we published that episode that week, when I shared it with my family, when I told the world, guess what? This guy you're looking at went through this dark experience, made these big mistakes, almost ended his own life. I'm telling you, Ed, it just, all the light bulbs went off with everybody. Emails from around the world. Brian, that was me. That was my uncle. That was my dad. That happened to you. How could that happen to you? Bam, bam, conversations, empowerment. Ed, the darkest moment of my life ended up being an incredible source of light and love and happiness, 10x bigger than my suffering, maybe 1,000x bigger. But it was only because I was willing to share it and learn from it and pass it on.
Brother, God bless you. That's so beautiful. It says that in Think and Grow Rich, a quote Hill, he says, on the other side of temporary pain, you get introduced to your other self. And all pain is temporary. My dad's body stopped working. Whatever pain my father was in with cancer, eventually that pain stopped. And so what you did is you met your other self on the other side of that adversity and that pain. But then to be willing to share it takes some balls, man. Takes some courage. And you should be acknowledged for that, because it is the thing that's probably the thing you've done in your life that has caused you to help more people in that instant than most of your life cumulatively before, right? And so I want to acknowledge you for doing that, man. That's why I'm willing to talk about my dad. And by the way, my own screw ups all the time. If you and I were perfect, how uninspiring would that crap be? But the fact that we're flawed and we're men and we make mistakes should give people hope. Like, if these two guys can do it, heck, maybe I can. And the truth is, you can, in your way, in your unique way. And you did that. That's magnificent, bro. I'm glad you shared that with me.
No, it's so good talking to you. And so people need to listen to this and realize that, guess what? All that life experience that causes you to think I'm not qualified actually does make you qualify. And if you can go ahead and help that one person, it will magnify and continue, and then pull you along with it, with this incredible experience. And you get into these one mores in the book. And you talk about living in the matrix. And I guess that comes back to that vision you see and that articulation system. And you talk about the principles of time management. You know, what should we go deep on here? Because like you said,
I think those two things, the RAS is huge. You said earlier, like, is my identity a big part? It is. The way I manage time and my RAS are probably my two biggest factors that have altered my life. So The Matrix, really quick. I love that movie, number one.
I just rewatched it in Boston. I was with my daughter. We were looking at schools. And one night we were so exhausted. And so we're like watching a movie. And I was like, let's watch The Matrix. She hadn't seen it. And I rewatched the whole thing, Ed. It was crazy.
It's so good. And my kids hadn't seen it either. And I've made them watch it now. The new one, but I made them watch the old ones to watch the new one. But here's the thing. There's a couple of things in the book that I love, that in The Matrix that I love, that are also in the book. Neo has the ability to slow things down to what he calls bullet time, because he's so hyper-focused on something. He's programmed his RAS. Your matrix is your RAS, meaning it reveals to you your reality. That's what your RAS is. It's the reticular activating system. It's located in the prefrontal cortex of your brain, and that doesn't matter. Here's all you need to know. It reveals to you what's most important to you. And so it's incredible. I'll give you an example. I just bought a Tesla. I don't really want one, but I like what Musk has been doing. I have no idea what he's really doing, but I just kind of like this dude. So I buy a Tesla. It gets delivered last Thursday. Bro, I'm driving now. I drive my wife crazy. I'm like, babe, red Tesla. Babe, white Tesla. There's another one. Freaking Teslas everywhere. 3 lanes over, other side of the freeway the other day. Babe, they're going the other direction. Black Tesla. She's like, what in the world? How do you see all these Teslas? And I go, here's what's crazy. They were always there, but they weren't part of my RAS before, because now I have one. I see these Teslas freaking everywhere. If you go into a loud room, 300 people, it's not even loud. Someone says, Brian or Ed, we hear our own voice audibly over all the noise in the room because it's part of our RAS. So the key thing in life, because you're all going, I know exactly what you're talking about, bro. If you're a guy and you're single and you like blondes, you walk into a room of 500 people, within about 1 minute, you can tell me where all the beautiful blondes are. If you like brunettes, you know where all the brunettes are. If you're a woman and you like guys with big muscles, you can tell me where all the muscular guys are pretty quickly. It's your RAS. The key thing in life is those one mores, you have to link them together. Those decisions, those meetings, those relationships we're saying that you are one more away from need to become your Teslas. And when they become your Teslas, you begin to see them everywhere. They were always there, but you're missing them because you're not programmed to do it. And when you're programmed to do it, because your mind moves towards what it's most familiar with. So I teach you in the book, very simple, repeated, simple visualizations that you do repeatedly over and over again. They're very basic. They're not complicated, to program your matrix. And now you begin to see the meeting, see the relationship, Find the thought, find the emotion, hear the conversation that was going on around you all the time that was not inside your matrix. Now it's in your matrix and you see them. This is not to be taken lightly. It will change your freaking life. Great football player, Tom Brady. His matrix is different than a rookie quarterback. His matrix, when he's at the line of scrimmage calling the play, he can find the hole in the defense and audible into the right play. If not, when he takes the snap back, he has been programmed in his matrix, like bullet time, things slow down. And he can see the open receiver as opposed to the covered one. The rookie quarterback, their matrix is under panic mode and they see the covered receivers only. They're all on the field. One sees the open one sees the covered one. This is the difference between success and failure, and it's very easy to fix. That's your matrix.
Boom. So don't get caught up in that reactionary matrix where your matrix is getting hijacked. Find a way where you can focus it on the things that are important, or that you can have the time to find those things and realize that it's happening, and don't let it happen to you.
No, and you're aware of it. And the other thing in the matrix, Neo is the one. That's what they call him, the one. And in every family, man, eventually the one shows up. I live here in Victoria Beach and Laguna Beach. When I was a little kid, my wife and I met in elementary school. When we were in high school, I would take her on this beach, go, babe, I'm gonna get us a beach house someday. I'm gonna get us one of these beach houses. No freaking clue how to do it. I went home, I said, hey, Dad, who are these people that live oceanfront? My dad's like, I got no idea. I don't know, they won the lotto. Like, I don't know anybody that lives on the ocean, which we didn't. Then I figured it out. When you find a family that's really happy or really successful or both, somewhere back in their lineage, they weren't. And then the one shows up in that family. And that one changes that family forever. The way the world treats them. I'm the one in my family, man. I'm the one. And then what? The world ain't gonna have their thumb on the Myletts anymore. We think different. We act different. The world treats us different. We operate in this place different because I showed up. And in your family, if you're listening to this, you could be the one. And it's not because you'll like it or you hope for it. It's because you'll fight for them. You'll fight for your family because you love them so damn much. You want to change the way the world treats them forever. My nieces and nephews, they don't think like I thought when I was a kid. They think different because of Uncle Eddie. They think different. My kids think different than how I thought growing up because of Dad. I'm the one in my family. You're the one in your family, Brian. Let's be real, right? And so all of you listen to this, you could be the one, but you got to know how to do it. And the one starts with your RAS. It starts with programming yourself. It starts with doing a little work. My mother-in-law loves Jesus. She sees Jesus everywhere, brother. Like, she walk outside, the wind blows. Thank you, Jesus. Y'all know someone like this, right? Thank you, Jesus. She'll be like, I was late to my hair appointment today, and Jesus made all the lights green. I got there in 4 minutes early. She sees Jesus everywhere, right? So what a beautiful filter for the world for her is that she sees that everywhere. But a lot of people, they see their problems. They see what they're worried about. They see their fears. Your mind is moving towards what you're most familiar with, men and women. And if you're most familiar with when you wake up, my to-do list, what I'm worried about, what could happen, my fears, my worries, you project in the future. Your RAS begins to find the people, places, and resources to prove you right. You will have those problems. You will have those anxieties. You will have those fears. So I could tell you how to do it, but there's a whole part of the book on how to do that.
Yeah, there's a whole chapter on that. I'm loving this. And I've never heard this IP anywhere, and I've never heard it all combined in one place either, Ed.
Yeah.
And especially coming from a guy like you who walks the walk and talks the talk 24/7. And again, I follow you, everything you're doing on Instagram. Like I said, I've seen you in Maine, I've seen you in LA, I see you with your cigars, I see you on the golf course, I see you with your dogs. And so we know that you live this congruently. And again, it's not just philosophy. You're giving us practical ways of changing things, right? Like
Thank you, bro. I'll just say one thing. I'll brag for 1 minute. This ain't another book.
Yeah.
Every book I read in personal development is just the same book. It's mainly the same book with some different words. I didn't want to write that book. What did I actually do? What are the things you really do to change your life? What do I need to think? What do I need to do? And I'll be honest with you, I'm not writing another one for a long time.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.